The speech I'm going to give today is entitled, Why Independent Film Directors Should Edit Their Own Films. I'd like to open this speech with mentioning the editor Mary Ann Bernard, who has edited 11 of Steven Soderbergh's films. These films include the like of Traffic, Magic Mike, and Logan Lucky. Mary Ann Bernard has actually been with Steven Soderbergh throughout his entire filming career, editing his films. And the reason for this is because Mary Ann Bernard is Steven Soderbergh. Mary Ann Bernard is just a pseudonym he uses for editing his own films. I've actually been editing my own films since I was 7. This is why I feel it is better for directors, especially independent directors, to edit their own films. Directors are responsible for creating their films, their babies. They should have a more hands-on approach in the process of raising their children. There are creative and technical reasons as to why an independent director should edit their own films. During this speech, I will talk about a few quotes from directors who edit their own films. Usually, film directors like to explain why they feel such a keen urge to edit their own productions. Then, I will explain some creative reasonings as to why it is more beneficial to the film to have its own director editing it. And then lastly, I will talk about some technical reasons as to why independent film directors should edit their own films. Kevin Smith has also been quoted with saying that after he's done filming a shot, he'll go to his computer and edit while his crew is setting up the next shot. That way, he'll be editing in real time, and he'll have stuff to show his actors and crew on set so that his crew and actors have a better understanding of what they are making. Steven Soderbergh shares a lot of the same beliefs as Kevin Smith, as Steven Soderbergh has been quoted with saying himself, "My first 3 movies, I didn't start editing until we were finished shooting. That's unthinkable to me now." And the reasons why is because it gives everyone making the film a better idea of what the film will be once it's done. It creates more cohesion in the film project. Steven Soderbergh also writes his own movies, and in this quote, he says, "I never leave the writer behind, because you rewrite the movie in post, or at least I do. I always do. And I feel like anybody who doesn't at least explore that possibility is shortchanging themselves. Editing is the most fun and most exciting part of the process." He says this because, as a writer-director, you may even come up with things for the film's narrative even after you're done shooting it in post, because the way a film's edited could change the scene significantly. Joel Coen of the Coen brothers is quoted with saying, "When you watch the dailies, you're very excited by it and very optimistic about how it's going to work. But when you see the rough cut, you want to go home and open up your veins and get in a warm tub. And then it gradually works its way back, somewhere toward the spot you were at before." I thought this was an important quote because, as it's not an easy process, editing is a very tedious process. It's also a very rewarding process too, and the final project you will be more close to if you were in fact the one who edited it. The aforementioned directors of this speech have some pretty solid explanations as to why they feel so strongly about editing their own films. Allow me to expand on the creative benefits of editing your own films. As I said before, directors can have a closer bond with their movie if they take a more hands-on approach to the editing aspect. And while some directors may like sitting in with editors and giving them notes while the editor makes the films themselves, they'll never know exactly what their cut would be like if the directors in fact cut the films themselves. And with editing comes the advent of creativity, furthered creativity, I may say. Also, through the process of editing your own film, a director can be more assured that their film's post-production is going along smoothly and in a timely manner. A lot of times when handing a film off to an editor, It may take longer than the director's desired time that he wants the film to be completed, along with the studio's mandates. Therefore, a director who edits his own film can easily manage the time of post-production and organize the post-production process better than if he were to work with an editor. Also, on a final note of the creative aspects and benefits to editing your own films. Editing your own films is easier than trying to tell an editor what you want. A lot of times directors may feel frustration or maybe straining to try to tell an editor what you want if they don't quite understand what it is you're saying, or if you're not fluently expressing what you want well enough. Well, if you edit your own films, you know what you want, and therefore it cuts out that barrier and makes the process easier. Now that I have informed you on the creative reasons as to why it is more beneficial for movie directors to edit their own films, allow me to list some of the technical and ethical reasons as to why a director should edit their own movie. For starters, it's one less person that needs to be paid for the movie. Movie productions cost a lot of money, and the reason why is a lot of people are working a lot of work hours and need to be paid substantially. Not having an editor and editing your own work cuts out a cost that would be there if you were to hire an editor. Another thing that's saved when editing your own movie is time. There's less time trying to get dailies and meetings on the editing process if you're editing your own films. A lot of the times, editors, whenever they edit alone, have to submit dailies and have meetings with the director to ensure that the director is satisfied with how the scene looks. If the director's editing their own films, they know that they're already satisfied with how the scene looks because they're the ones who are editing it. Therefore, it cuts out all the time that's spent on meetings and watching dailies, which cuts out a significant amount of time from post-production. And my third and final reason on the ethics of editing your own film is that oftentimes directors will sit down with the editor anyways when they're editing their film. So they may as well edit the films themselves. The only thing that's missing is the director's own hands on the keyboard. As a conclusion, although editing films is difficult and timely and very, very tedious, I find it to be more beneficial and more rewarding if directors are to edit their own films. Thank you for your time.